Hello and welcome back to the Thought Leader Recruit podcast. I'm Sam Bylett, and today I'm joined by Bennett Richardson, recruiter at Snelling Staffing Agency of Northern Colorado. Bennett, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Sam. Happy to be here.
Great to have you here.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm a recruiter at Snelling Staffing and recently have taken on the role of assistant operations manager as well. So my day-to-day mostly consists of lots and lots of calls and recruiting and meeting people. That's my favorite part of the job. And then recently I've started doing some like tech and back end work as well, making sure we're using the latest and greatest technology. That's a little bit of what I do. And I came into Snelling about 4 years ago. I can't believe in about a month it'll be 4 years that I've been working at Snelling. Right after college, I moved to Colorado from Texas and started working for Snelling. I didn't know that I wanted to be a recruiter at the time, but it turned out to be just a fantastic, happy accident that I got into this industry.
Amazing. And
Yeah, I got to give the classic answer.
yeah,
And one thing about me, transparency is my big thing. I think just being very honest about stuff. I fell into it. I was getting out of college. I had my communication degree and I was applying to a wide variety of things with not a ton of direction. And I fell into it in my interview process. Trish actually told me a lot more about what recruiting would be. And it just seemed like a great fit, talking to people, helping people get jobs. It's a good fit for me.
and since getting into the industry, what's one thing that really kind of surprised you about the recruiting world?
I would probably just say how dynamic it is, how quickly you got to be on your toes, how quickly you have to switch things up on a day-to-day basis. You could go from working with somebody on a very entry-level position, describing the job in great detail, to talking with somebody who's at the top of their field and who's like a career individual, and just being really adaptable has been something of a surprise to me. Like I wouldn't have expected that out of this job, where you just never know what you're coming into day to day.
Yeah, makes sense. And the recruiting world has evolved a lot. What are some of the biggest shifts you've seen in companies, how they hire versus when you
Yeah, when thinking about that question, what initially comes up is that I came into recruiting just after COVID had really settled, and it was still very much a candidate's market where there weren't a ton of candidates working or looking for new work. So candidates had a lot of the power in that situation, and clients had to, be very open to who they might bring on, where their skill level might be, that kind of thing. And it's switched further into a client's market since then, especially the last 2 years. It's been a lot more candidates looking for work. So there's a lot of people looking for work right now, and clients get to be a little bit more picky. And that's kind of where I get to help clients and candidates alike. It's just changed my role a little bit.
and your team wears a lot of different hats. What does a typical week actually look like for you?
Yeah, I do anywhere between on the best days 10 to 20 meetings a day. Honestly, it's constant calls. That's my thing. Hiring can be a battle of attrition, so it's just always keeping more and more options, getting more and more calls going. And I do a lot of searching for our company. We don't just post and pray. We're very much an active recruiting firm, and we're constantly searching on the job boards for people who are currently working. So if it's not calling, it's searching. If it's not searching, it's calling. And then when I have the time, I help with like tech stuff, reviewing new programs that we could use to improve efficiency, things of that nature.
Sounds like there's never a dull moment. Sounds you're always busy.
I've yet to see a dull moment in
Yeah,
life.
yeah, love that. And what would you say is the most rewarding part of your role? And on the flip side, what part of the job keeps you on your toes the most?
Yeah. Well, and to use the flip metaphor, it really is two sides of a coin. On the one hand, my favorite part of the job is calls I actually just got to make this morning, getting people jobs. People are excited. They've got a new opportunity on the horizon. Everything's fresh and exciting. And then if I were to say the hardest part of the job for me is definitely when things just aren't a fit for candidates, when it just doesn't happen to work out that one time. That's never going to get easier. But it's a necessary part of the job, and there's always going to be disappointments, but the highs are high, the lows are a little low. It all evens out. It's like one of those responsibilities that I don't take lightly. I try to make those calls very intentional, focus on feedback, how I can help a candidate improve for the future, and be ready for the next interview.
For people who aren't familiar, can you just give us a quick backstory on Snelling Staffing and how did it all get started?
Yeah, definitely. Well, it, it was back in 1997 that this gentleman named Ray had started Snelling of NoCo and kind of created the infrastructure. My boss Trish bought it of just about 10 years ago now. Everything was paper back then. Everything was file cabinets and paper and word of mouth, that kind of thing. There wasn't a ton of social media work being done. But at the core of the organization, even before Trish took it over, it was a great reputation. Just, nice people doing their best to assist companies in the area. And so when Trish took it over, she pretty quickly started moving things, catching things up with the technology of the day. And like we over the last 10 years and my 4 years here, we've just been constantly focused on improving our technology, but maintaining that core principle of being good people, just trying to help organizations in Northern Colorado.
And
At risk of being repetitive, I love the people that I work with. We're nice folks. We are people focused. That's always going to be the case. I think with recruiting can get kind of a reputation at times of being focused only on profits or things like that. But we constantly are talking with one another on what approach, what strategy is going to be best for both the clients we're working with, the candidates we're working with. I mean, we don't really stop when it comes to trying to improve. We do like happy hours a lot of the time and hang out with each other and making those strong bonds on our internal team, I think really reflects our priorities when we get working with companies and candidates.
how do you go about finding and placing a top talent for your clients?
Sure. Well, I'll tell you what I tell new clients, which is that the first place we're going to look is our extensive database. We value the relationships we've made. The first thing we're going to do is try and see if we've already spoken with somebody who could be a good fit. And a lot of times those people come to mind when new jobs come in. And then we don't just post and pray, like I mentioned. We always get right to searching actively for candidates. I guess actually we use the term passive recruiting, where it's like people who are currently working or who are not necessarily in the first place you're going to look. Those are the people that we're going to look after. And we're going to go the extra mile to find candidates that aren't just going to come up on your usual job board.
And yeah, the last 2 years have been a roller coaster for staffing. How did Snelling navigate all that uncertainty and change?
What we love about being a smaller organization is being flexible. So as these challenges have come, we've just always been analyzing the market and seeing where we're most needed, be it sorting through tons of different candidates like it's been recently. Yeah, we've had our ups and downs, but we've always stayed positive and also maintained. I know I've said this a few times, but like looking at the best technology of the day and what's going to make us most efficient has definitely been helpful as well.
What are you seeing right now in the Northern Colorado market?
Yeah, we're definitely seeing companies start to creep out, of their caves and I think based on this last year, there was a lot of holding your breath and kind of waiting to see what the economy is going to look like, how politics is going to affect all that. I won't get too far into it, but just to say, I think companies are getting excited about hiring, about building their teams again. So things have definitely just been picking up, and that's kind of the trend we've been seeing.
Yeah, absolutely. And for companies out there that are struggling to hire, what's one common mistake you see that's slowing them down?
I think a lot of times hiring managers, owners are going to come in with a very narrow point of view of what they want out of a candidate. They'll assess their needs, but also the culture of their company. And they'll say, I want a unicorn. I want, purple wings. I want a nice coat and a great horn as well. And sometimes you gotta, pick one of those things and leave the others. And so I think a mistake is being too rigid in your hiring and looking at only a few factors when you need to be open-minded, look at training opportunities and see who can be a long-term fit, maybe despite some factors.
And when a new client comes to you, what does the process typically look like from their perspective?
Yeah, well, one thing that I want to emphasize amongst mentioning all this, focus on technology is that you're always going to get a real person on the phone, when you call into a Snelling. And then from that point on, we're going to do everything we can to assess why you're having trouble with hiring, what you're looking for, what we can provide for you. I mean, it's just a really people-centric approach over at Snelling and NoCo.
And your team seems to have a really strong relationship with candidates. How
Mhm.
do you build that kind of trust and early access to that talent?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, our database is the first place we go. So we really have conversations every day with a lot of the same people, trying to keep people updated on what opportunities that might work for them. That trust comes intrinsically or inherently after just a few conversations, letting them know that like we have new opportunities. We really are thinking of them, and we're going to keep them in mind. If we don't have the job today, we're going to have it in the next couple weeks, and we'll call you.
And what's next for Stelling is where do you see things heading over the next few years?
Yeah, I mean, when that question makes me think something pretty straightforward, which is just that we're trying to grow. I mean, we're a small team, but we can handle a lot. So we're actively focusing on business development, looking for new clients, new opportunities, places where we can be of service. Or niches more in the manufacturing sector. One thing that I've been excited about recently is construction. I've had a few success stories, getting some placements in roofing construction, for instance. So I'm kind of thinking of niching into that market as well. That's one thing, for instance.
What kind of tech's kind of exciting you right now? And are you using much of it to automate your approach?
Yeah, so much of what we do has been automated as of this last few years, like outreach campaigns and things like that. Keeping the personal touch as best I can. I always start with a phone call, but everything else after that being automated, being smart, being able to track response rates has been so helpful. And then the word of the year, and maybe the rest of
Yeah,
my lifetime, is AI. I mean, we've been using it. We've been assessing where it can best be used while maintaining high ethical and personal standards. That's why my personal approach is to use AI and other such programs on the back end mostly, from A to B, trying to get the most efficient path, but it's always going to start and end with conversations.
I think we're already seeing that. I'm seeing.
Yeah, absolutely. When I see obviously AI content, for instance,
Mhm.
on the internet, it'll make me shut my laptop on things.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And for a business owner listening who's unsure about working with a recruiter, what would you want them to hear?
Yeah, I mean, I from a personal perspective, if you're in northern Colorado, we're going to do everything we can to do it best and to assess your problems and help you have the best hiring strategy possible. And then from an industry perspective, I think this is, a common theme. I think we go back to our point of authenticity. I think a lot of people are chasing that right now. I think recruiters more and more want to shake that reputation that has been built up over the years and be authentic, be of service, be helpful. So I think this is a great time to utilize recruiting services.
Yeah, for sure. And finally, where's the best place for people to learn more about Snelling or reach out to you directly?
Sure. Yeah. Well, our website has a ton of information. Snelling of Northern Colorado. You can just search that up, and you'll get it right to us. And then before that, though, I would encourage people to just give us a call. Give it a couple rings, and somebody's going to answer your call, and we're happy to talk about what we do, how we do it, how we can help.
Thanks, Bennett. Really appreciate it today.
Yeah. Thanks, Sam.
Take care.
Alrighty.